Oh, all right, all right. Here I am once again. This is my fruit tier list. Um, Quick note, this is not based on taste. I think people can become so divided on which fruits they like, and that's not what I'm here to do. I'm strictly on accessibility. Is this fruit easy to eat? Do I need to crack it open first? Do I need like a utensil to eat with it? Can I take it on the go somewhere? You know, all these factors I got to consider, but it's okay because here we are. I didn't make this um, list, I didn't add these fruits in. I found this. So there's some repeats. There's like three different apples because it's supposed to be on taste. And there's some I would combine too, like oranges and grapefruits. I don't really need both. They're both kind of the same in terms of accessibility. But I, you know, let's just start. Okay, I was gifted this list. Let's just start. Um, let's start from the bottom. In F tier, pineapple. A nightmare of a fruit to start eating. Um, there's so much, you got to cut it so many times because you got to cut the top, the bottom, and then you got to skin the outside. And I guess from there you could start eating it like corn, like on the cob, because of the core in the middle. But nobody usually does that. They usually have to core it too, which is a whole process. Pineapple is a nightmare to eat. Tastes good, but it's really hard. Next up, speaking of really hard, coconuts. Coconuts are, you gotta, it's similar to pineapple. I don't know which one is worse. Similar to pineapple, you gotta break something, and it's a whole process. Coconuts, you gotta crack it open, and then I guess from there you could start eating, but you kind of need a spoon because it's concave. It's bad. Both of these are bad. They taste good, but both of them are bad. Now, next up in E, we have the melons. Cantaloupe and watermelon. These could arguably be on the same tier as coconut and pineapple because you do need to, like, similar to coconut, you do need to, like, crack it open. But I'm saying they're slightly above because with coconut, you kind of need a spoon. I guess you can, like, scratch at the actual coconut inside, but that's a little bit hard. With a watermelon, you simply slice it in half and you could eat it right with your hands. Doesn't matter. Cantaloupe's a bit harder, but I don't know. I'm not trying to, split hairs here. I just think that melons are easier to eat than both pineapple and coconut. Let me be. So, D tier is unique. Both D and A tier. I figured this out beforehand, but D and A tier are both very unique for their own reasons. With D, I'm putting cherries. Now, cherries are pretty good, but that pit, that stupid pit, every cherry, it's it's not a lot of fruit compared to the pit. It's not a lot of satisfaction. With a watermelon, you might run into a black seed here and there, but you got so much fruit. However, it's still lower because of the gotta crack it open factor. Cherries should be higher because you could pop them in your mouth, but it's that pit that really gets me. Every cherry has a pit, and you always gotta spit it out, and it's always a nightmare. I don't want to deal with that. And for that, cherry is in D. Now, what's special about cherries is that nothing is also in D. I thought of it beforehand, and it kind of deserves to be there on its own. Because C is a big tier list, but I couldn't hit anything down to D from C. I just couldn't. Now, C is shares a lot of fruit. We got oranges, lemons, grapefruit. Clementines are like maybe B. You know what? I'll come back to clementines later. That one's a tough one. But these, they all have a skin. They all have waste at the end. It's kind of, yeah, it's whatever. You gotta make a small cut, then you can start eating, but then, you still have like a rind left over. I do think that they're better than cherries because cherries are so annoying. Now, similar to the citruses, we have kiwis, still a skin. Some people eat the skin, but I'm leaving it in C for the general population. Same with mangoes, got a skin. And avocados, they have a skin and a pit. But the pit doesn't really bother me because it's not that hard to remove. Uh, but yeah, the skin ones are really the ones that are dragging it behind. Bananas as well. Um, got something, got a peel, got something in the way of my delicious fruit, and frankly, I'm pissed. So yeah, let's see. We'll get back to clementines later, but for now, we're going up to B, which I think. Oh yeah, A tier is it's got a special one. But in B, we have the apples. I think we should also put peaches, pears, obviously. Pears are just apples. Shoot. Pears are just apples, and these are plums, I think. Um, those go in B because you can start eating them right away, but you still have leftovers. Still got a pit, a core, whatever it may be. Still got to deal with it. And, it's a bit complicated. But overall, we're improving, and I'm proud of that. There are two outliers, and tomatoes and cherries are them. Now, what makes a tomato more accessible than an apple is the fact that the cleanup is way more manageable. With an apple core, it's got a core. But with a tomato, you technically could just eat the whole thing whole. But even if you didn't want to do that, it's like a few leaves off the top. Easy. And don't even get me started on cherry tomatoes. They're not on this list, but if they were, they'd go up an S with grapes. Seedless grapes are so easy to eat. On the vine or in a container, you pop them in your mouth, you're happy. Up there with grapes, some berries. Those three berries are pretty self-explanatory. They're just like grapes. Usually they come in a container and they're individually eaten easily. So that's pretty self-explanatory. What I have the hardest time with is clementines and strawberries. Now, here's what I'm basing my decision off of. With C, we have the peeled, the ones that need peeling. And clementines do have a peel, but most of the time it is way easier to peel a clementine than an orange. Smaller surface area, and just like the reachability with the thumbs, it's easier. But I don't know if it's enough to bump it up to B, because B you can start eating right away. And for that, I'm going to put clementine as the highest C tier. They're not ranked within the tiers, except for that one. C for clementine. Now, strawberries. Strawberries is a good argument to make. There's a lot of arguments to make with strawberries, is what I mean. Many people would put them on par with cherries, which I don't think they are. The reason for that is that each one individually has waste. However, some people eat strawberries whole, and for that you could put it up with tomatoes. I'm saying though that strawberries are definitely better than cherries on an accessibility scale because with cherries you have to dig and like find the pit in your mouth and then spit it out. Strawberries usually you grab it by the bad end, by the leaves, and you take a bite and you're done. Maybe you nibble a little bit left over, but then you're done. And cherry pits, need to go in the garbage. But the butts of strawberries you could usually toss if you're having like a picnic outside. You could usually toss for like the birds or ants to find. More environmentally friendly strawberries are. Only problem is I can't decide whether, because right now we know that strawberries are definitely not D tier, but for me they could be A because I I can very easily eat them with whole with no remorse. You know what? I'm gonna put them as a unique high B. Just for, just to, you know. I'm sticking with tomatoes in A though. Tomatoes are cool, and you can eat them like that. Some may say they're basically an apple, but I don't think so. Tomatoes do not have cores. You can eat those. But yeah, I'm putting strawberries in a high B because it's definitely not D. I think they're easier than C because C you have something in the way. Strawberries you can just take a bite out of. I might put them in A, but strawberries in B is good because you can take a bite immediately among the other ones, but you have a cleanup afterwards. That's not as tedious as cherries. And with that, I think my tier list is done. Tell me what I did right, only because I did everything right. This is perfect in every way, and nobody can argue otherwise. I wish that this tier list had less tiers. I wish it was just S, A, B, C, D. Um, but that's okay. I'm fine with it. This is my unique tier list. Cherries and D is like, I felt like I explained that well. Anyways, that's it. Hope hope you enjoyed watching. Um, uh, how do I, how should I end this video?